Hello. Today we will be going over 3 ordering lunch scenarios. The first scenario showcases a person who is unfamiliar with technology, requiring more time and assistance. Meet Professor David, who has worked in the physics department of the University of Arizona for over 30 years. He is not a smartphone user and is unfamiliar with technology. Thus, he has difficulty with the restaurant kiosk. Let's get started with scenario 1. The second scenario presents someone who is a foodie, tech-savvy, and likes to take the time to check out the menu while dining in. Mary is a junior undergraduate student at the University of Arizona. Her major is nutrition, and she is a big foodie. She is well versed at technology and enjoys using food ordering interfaces. The third scenario shows a busy person in a rush, who is familiar with food ordering interfaces. Peter is a busy person who has limited time for lunch. He is taking many classes this semester for early graduation. He has an iPhone, and has experience on using online food ordering services.